Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shelly and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different for this space. I have recently been watching Kayla at Books and Lala quite a bit. I've been like binging her content, which happens from time to time. She's a booktuber here. I'm sure you all know her. And she does a year-long reading challenge, and it's called the Buzzword Reading Challenge. And she just put out her list of 12 concepts, 12 words essentially, that can be used as a guidance for a monthly TBR. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take her 12 words and I'm going to give recommendations. That's what I'm going to do. So hi, if you're new to my channel, then hi, I'm Shelly. I love books and reading, and today I'm going to be sharing the creme de la creme, the best of the best. I was looking through the archives of my reading past, and I'm only going to be sharing the best with you. And I'm also going to be getting ready because that's what needs to happen right now. So yeah, if you like books and reading, if you like getting ready, with people, you like relaxing content that's also very energetic, then I would encourage you to subscribe and to stick around. So Kayla's first words for January are the words life and death. One can choose books based off of those words, the words life or the word life or the word death rather. And so I have two books here. One of which is a book that both books I don't highlight enough on my channel, though one book has a life of its own. Maybe we'll just continue to use the word life while I talk about this life and death prompt. And so the first one is Jane Austen, A Life by Claire Tomlin. This is Jane Austen's biography. It's not super long. It's very readable. It's very enjoyable. Jane Austen actually doesn't have a lot of personal documents still around. Her family destroyed a lot of them after her death. And so there is a lot of focus on the large family Jane Austen had, all of her siblings. It's a wonderful book. I really enjoyed this, and this helped me really understand Jane Austen's work more, and it helped me really appreciate her work quite a bit more. The other book is A Little Life, which is the book that has a life of its own. Truly, here on the internet, I feel like everybody has talked about it. Everyone has an opinion about it. It's by Hanya Yanagihara, and it is a dark book. It's very dark. It gave me nightmares for the entire time that I was reading it. However, it's also got this almost magical quality to it. The writing just sucked me in. I was so deep in it. When I was reading it, I was like in the world that Hanya Yanagihara was building. And essentially it's about a group of 4 friends, and eventually it goes to focus and to spotlight on one friend named Jude. And it tells you about his life, and it's about trauma, all the trigger warnings, literally all of the trigger warnings that you could possibly think of. And I think at the heart of it, at least for me, it was almost like how could we really know each other? How can you really know someone else? I'm getting kind of philosophical as I'm thinking about A Little Life. I really ought to reread it, but there are some scenes in the book that are extremely difficult, extremely bleak. But there's this it's this je ne sais quoi quality to A Little Life. It's so readable. All of a sudden you just are like deeply in love with all of the characters, crying over it. I think everybody cries over it, or at least is deeply moved by it. What happens when I don't set up properly is that my camera dies in the middle of chatting about A Little Life. It was probably saying, you need to move on, Shelly. So I will just say that A Little Life is just a gorgeous read, a beautiful read. And if you haven't read it already and you're up for some triggering content, but also for a really great story, I would highly recommend the book. It's so good. At this pace, this is going to be a 90-minute video, so I'm sorry ahead of time. I hope you grabbed a snack. I hope you're all cozied up, and that you're really enjoying yourself. I always leave my brows for last, and I think I'm going to actually do my brows after I prime my eyelids. So yeah, the order of events is important here. Next prompt was actually probably the easiest, and it is VERBS. Oh, I had so many great books to recommend. So I'm gonna start with, and actually all of them are nonfiction. So I don't know what it is with nonfiction and verbs, but those seem to be a good marriage when it comes to titles. The first one is Unfollow. It's Megan Phelps Roper's memoir. She grew up with and was a member of the Westboro Baptist Church, which is one of the most extreme and obnoxious churches that ever existed. And it is about her transformation as a person from somebody who really believed in the extremist ideas and the very damaging ideas that her family was not only believed in, but also like viciously preached and rallied on the streets. They held up signs with profane language, very damaging, very gross, to really kind of sum it up in one word. And she goes from being a deep supporter of the ideas that she grew up with. Some of the ideas being that, I mean, literally the title on their website is God Hates Fags. It's so gross. It's so gross. But she goes from somebody who really was deeply entrenched and deeply believed in these ideas to somebody who is lovingly reaching out to her family, trying to get them to stop doing what they're doing. That transformation is incredible. She does such a great job balancing the love she has for her family and that she still has for her family, even though they are entrenched in just dangerous, awful ideas, and also condemning them and saying that what they're doing is not okay. It's a beautiful balance. It's such a beautiful balance, and I just love that memoir. The next book I read this past month, and it is one of my favorite, it has reached to be one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time, and it is Regarding the Pain of Others by Susan Sontag, and it is about the history of war photography and the problem with being a consumer, a viewer of war photography, and her ideas of what we need to do in order to be more thoughtful consumers, essentially, of difficult images. And what it means to look at photography, what it means to see these images, how these images are produced. It's so good. It's so interesting, and I just loved it. The last book, I was being kind of cheeky here, and I was like, you can actually, in the verb month, you can actually read a book on verbs, you know? And so the one I have to recommend is Hex, Vex, Smash, Smooch. And it is Constance Hale's book about the verb and the history of verbs, and it's a great and very readable text. So if you're kind of a grammar nerd like I am, not saying that I'm great at grammar, I just do enjoy reading a good grammar book from time to time. This one is entertaining and enjoyable and really, you know, broaden my ideas about what a verb can be. What am I doing next? I'm doing brows. Shelly, get it together. I'm dipping my brush in the blush that I don't even want to use today. I don't know what my deal is. I'm feeling very excited about sharing these books with you. When I'm talking about my favorite books, I just get a little overexcited. Brows are on. We're going to talk about Secret, which is the word for March. And what I have is, obviously I have notes down here in my very cute Totoro journal. I love this journal. I keep very special notes in it. So anyways, Secret. So I'm going to recommend Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty. And this is about the family that is at the cornerstone of the opioid crisis. This is by Patrick Radden Keefe, and a fascinating, quick, fast-paced nonfiction book. If you think you don't like nonfiction, try this book, and I promise you will fall in love. It's just such an engaging and fast read. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. I mean, I didn't love the content. I loved the way the story was told. Although I do have one critique. Patrick Radden Keefe tends to lean on very inflammatory verbs, very inflammatory language, and I felt like the story was gross enough. Maybe I should choose a different word than gross. I felt like the story really stood on its own. As this family really preyed on the pain of others to make a fortune, and was really truly at the cornerstone of the opioid crisis and their awareness of how addictive certain drugs were, and yet they still continued to market and push these drugs. I felt like the story on its own was enough and could have definitely stood on its own as an incredible story. And Patrick Radden Keefe tends to sort of lean on the language that also provokes the reader, certain language that is just truly inflammatory, and I didn't love that. But overall, the book is a great, incredible, interesting, fascinating read. All right, April, we have emotions. So words that are connected with our feelings. And so, of course, I'm going to recommend the book that probably everyone and their mother has read this year. It has taken the world by storm, and I was caught up in the hype, and I thought it was incredible. And it's I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. which is about, it is a celebrity memoir, but I feel like you don't have to know anything about Jennette McCurdy's career. Like, I didn't know anything about her career when I read this book, and I still very much enjoyed it, which is why it made the list. And it's really about her time as a child actor, the problems with being a child star, the pressures, the difficulties, and the very, very, very problematic relationship that she had with her mother. I thought it was brilliant. It talks openly and explicitly about eating disorders, so if that is very triggering to you, if that's a topic that you don't want to read about, then I would very much stay away from this memoir. But if you are okay with it and you are willing to dive into the heart-wrenching details of Jennette McCurdy's life, then I would highly recommend this. Now, I think at this point I was thinking, gosh, I'm really recommending a lot of nonfiction. So let's add a little fiction back into the mix. And so I also wanted to recommend A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, because, you know, angry is an emotion. This is by Becky Chambers. This is a sci-fi book. It is following a single ship that basically punches holes in the galaxy so that people can travel from one side of the galaxy to the other. But it's not really about that. It is super, super light on the science fiction side of things, and it's so much more about the characters and the way the characters interact. And she does such a great job creating species that have this twist on it, that has a twist on gender, on sexuality, on the way, like, that adds a lot of tension in the crew. And I thought that was really great. So just a delightful book, an enjoyable read, and really one of those reads for non-science fiction readers like myself. Can I just blend eyeshadow while I'm recommending the next book? I think so. The next topic, the next theme. So in May, the word is flavors, and I believe Kayla herself said that she chose this so that she could read all of the books that have salt in the title. And I do love myself a salty snack, but we're gonna go with sugar. This was very difficult. I have not read a lot of flavory books, so maybe that's something I ought to look for 2023. But I'm gonna be recommending Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Dear Sugar. This is one of Cheryl Strayed's writing. She's most known for her book Wild, her memoir in which she hiked a good portion of the Pacific Crest Trail. But I like this book, I think, even better than Wild, because she is writing an advice column and she is taking on the name Dear Sugar to be anonymous, although she always knew she was going to come out as Dear Sugar. But at the time of publication, she was anonymous. What she does is that she takes a letter that is often very beautifully written, and at the heart of it has a question that has to do with the internal lives of the writer, or the internal life of the writer, and our emotional lives. And the way that she approaches the answer is to tell a deeply and wonderfully thought out story from her own life in order to illuminate something that the reader can do for themselves. And often I think that at the heart of every answer that she gives as Dear Sugar is, you are not alone. You are not alone in your loneliness. You are not alone in your pain. You are not alone in your suffering. And I'm going to tell you something about myself that makes you feel less alone. It's beautiful, it's touching, it's heart-wrenching. I love it so much. I love it so much. I really struggle with June's word. The word for June is other, and Kayla made it very clear that she doesn't want a play on other like the words mother or brother. She wants specifically the word mother. So like no cheating here kind of thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have hardly anything to recommend. So finally I found something, and it is a gorgeous book. It's gorgeous. It is a wordless picture book, and it is The Other Side by Istave Benyai. It's incredible. I'll show you some pictures. It's one of those gorgeously done picture books, done mostly in grayscale with small pops of color. Totally worth a flip through, a gander, in which you can just immerse yourself in gorgeous imagery. It's not just a gorgeous book, it's also a clever book, which I really appreciate with the children's picture books. It's one of the things I look for, a little twist, a little extra something, and that this book definitely has. The Other Side definitely has a little extra something that is worth your time, worth seeking it out, and worth reading. All right, our next prompt for July is weather words, and I have two really great recommendations for this. The first one is Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. Now, I think this is one of the most polarizing books I've seen out there. I feel like you either love this book or you hate this book. I fall on the side, because I'm recommending it, of those who love this book. I think this is brilliant. This is essentially 5 short stories in a very non-conventional structure, and you follow very odd and eccentric characters, and then the book goes off the rails in the middle of this book. It goes like off the chain. It's so satisfying though. It really is. I love this book. I think it is just incredible. Now, it seems to me that the middle of the book, and once you get into it and you understand what's happening in the structure of it, you'll understand why the middle is such a hit among readers. Seems to be the most popular part, and then when you get to the second half of the book, that's when most readers DNF it and abandon it. But I think it's worth reading all the way to the very end. It's very satisfying, and I just, such a good book. And then my other book, as I'm like blending my blush in, the other book is A Raisin in the Sun, which I read last month by Lorraine Hansberry. It's brilliant. It's a play. It's very, very short. We have the word sun in it because, you know, that's what we're doing, weather words here. And I just, this is a great book. It is about a multi-generational Black family living in Chicago in this very tiny apartment, and they are just trying to make it. They're trying to survive, and there is competing personalities. Everyone has got a big one, and they are often in conflict with each other. The way the whole thing plays out is just a genius, and Lorraine Hansberry's writing is just superb. So I highly recommend this. Oh, I have another one. I have another weather-related word prompt book to recommend, and it is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is a young adult book, and it is quite possibly, I cannot think of a young adult book that I like more. So it is my favorite young adult book of all time. It's so good. It is so good. I read this, 4 years ago now, and I still hold it in such high regard. I love this book. It is about a brother and sister who have lost their mother. That's told at the very beginning. And they are both artists. This young brother and sister, they're twins, they're artists, and they see the world in very different ways. And that is very much reflected in Jandy Nelson's writing and structuring of the book. And it's about understanding what is often misunderstood, talking about the hard stuff. And the way that it all comes together is so satisfying. It's so good. If you are looking for a young adult book that will make you cry, that will make your heart double beat, this is one for you. I love this book. For August, we have body parts, and I'm going to take this quite literally and say the whole body. You know, the whole body, not just a part of it, the whole body. And I'm going to recommend Hilary Mantel's Bring Up the Bodies. Hilary Mantel, this is a Tudor historical fiction book that follows Thomas Cromwell, who's often thought of as a villain, and Hilary Mantel really at least changed my heart with that thinking. She is brilliant. Her writing is second to none. I do think that she is one of the most brilliant writers of our day. This is also one of the most polarizing books I've ever seen on BookTube. It seems like you either love Hilary Mantel's writing or you say, I can see why it's so beautiful, but she's not for me. I'm one of those people that just loves her. I just love her writing. And this is the second book in the series. I would recommend starting with Wolf Hall, but if you have read Wolf Hall and you've been dragging your feet on the next book, this book reads quicker, and it's a shorter than Wolf Hall, and things really come together quite quickly, and so worth it, so worth it. But in case that doesn't work out, in case you're like, the whole body, no, then I will cheekily recommend The Vagina Monologues by Eve Ensler, which I read in September. This is so much more hilarious than I thought it would be, and it's so different. And what Eve Ensler does is that this is supposed to be performed as spoken word, as monologues, and she is essentially trying to take away the shame that one feels about their vagina, or the feelings that perhaps our collective society has has grown up feeling about vaginas. And she does it in a way that's funny, that's thoughtful, that's thought-provoking. But I love that there's just a twist of humor on the whole thing. It's fantastic. And if we want to just, go even smaller, we're not the whole body, then a single body part. Now we're really thinking about small little things in the body. And we're going to be thinking about eyes. So Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, which is just a brilliant book. This follows the story of Janie Crawford, who has come back home after having had a long time away. And it is the story of her life and the men in her life, and it's about agency. It's about so much. It's so good. I would highly recommend this if you haven't read it already, even if you are not even looking for a prompt to fill or a book to fill the prompt body parts. I would just read this separately. It's so good. It's so good. I don't think this video will be 45 minutes. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. For September, we have game words. I was so thrilled because I found this book basically right away and I was like, you were doing something right, Shelly. So the game word that I am working with is the word map, because in games, there's often a map that goes with it. And I am thinking about Maddie Mortimer's Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies, which was long-listed and shamefully not shortlisted for the Booker this year. And it is just a brilliant piece of writing. There's a lot of playfulness. So I should probably tell you what this book is about first. This book is about a mother who is dying of cancer. And what Maddie Mortimer does is that she gives a voice to that cancer. And the language is incredibly playful. It's incredibly, it really breaks up some of the more difficult topics, which is all about mother-daughter relationships. The protagonist, whose name eludes me right now, she doesn't have the best relationship with her mother, and she is working on a healthy relationship even through this cancer. She's working on a healthy relationship that she can have with her daughter. And it's about a past that one needs to reckon with. It's so good. It was so good. And I'm still mad at the Booker for not shortlisting it. I just really should have been shortlisted. Our next prompt is magic words, and this is for October, which I really like because, Halloween, magic, like hocus pocus kind of stuff. But I'm actually going to go for the word wonder, which I feel like magic often conjures in us. And I'm going to go with R.J. Palacios' Wonder. This is about a young boy, Augie, who is entering first grade, and he's entering the school system for the first time because he has an extraordinary face. It's one that's different and that visibly looks different. And it is about friendship and kindness and being kind to others. It's just one of those books that made me ugly cry because it is just so precious. If you haven't read this already, do yourself the gift of reading this because it is incredible. I also want to recommend a book that I gave to my nephew that I really enjoyed because magic often makes us feel like we are living a miracle. And this is The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate DiCamillo. And this is about a porcelain bunny. The whole story is being narrated by a porcelain bunny that has consciousness but doesn't actually move. And it is the journey and the internal changes that this bunny has. It sounds kind of silly, but it is the most precious, the most incredible, the sweetest book. I just loved it, and it read so quick. It reads like a fairy tale, like a very short fairy tale with the most spectacular ending. And I did not know that I could be invested in a porcelain bunny, but I was, y'all. Weirdly, the word good gave me quite the trouble. I could not find a book to fit good until I really had to hunt. I shouldn't talk while I'm putting lip gloss on as I continue to talk. We're going with two children's classics. That's what's happening. So we're doing Goodnight Moon by Margaret Wise Brown and pictures by Clement Hurd. This, if you haven't read this in a long time, or if you've never read it by any chance, I would give this a gander. This is a precious book. The art is incredible. It essentially deconstructs bedtime and saying goodnight to everything. I just love this book. It's so stinking brilliant, and I think I love it more as an adult than I did as a child. I can just appreciate its brilliance now more than ever. I also have Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day by Judith Vorst, and it's illustrated by Ray Cruz. Another just children's classic about how we all have horrible, no good days. And again, I think it's one that I appreciate more now as an adult than I did as a child. Love this book. We've made it to December, yay! So we're gonna do sound related words. I have 2 books for this. And again, we're doing kind of a cheeky children's book. Although one, y'all will enjoy. If you're an adult watching this, you will enjoy it now. Actually, both books. I think adults would enjoy this better than children would. And that is going to be, the first one is Scientific Progress Goes Boink. Boink is a sound word. And this is by Bill Watterson. This is the comic strip that Bill Watterson wrote in the late 80s, early 90s. It is about Calvin and his very wild imagination, and then his stuffed tiger who is alive in his eyes named Hobbes. And it is a play on John Calvin and someone Hobbes, who were philosophers and theologians. And it's about their different perspectives on the world. But what he does is that he brings us to the modern day. And so there's Calvin, who's a bit of a cynic, who's a bit curmudgeon about life. I love Calvin and Hobbes so much. I love it so much. I've continued to promise that I'm going to do a whole dedicated video about the meaning Calvin and Hobbes has in my life, and yet I still kind of skirt the issue. Bill Watterson is a brilliant, humorous, talented cartoonist, and if you can get your hands on any Calvin and Hobbes, then I would highly, highly encourage this read. It's so good. And then the last one is a very cheeky children's book. Also, I think would be enjoyed by adults just as much as by children. And it's one that I've read to 5-year-olds quite often when I did story time at the library, and it was always a huge hit with them. And it is going to be Bark George, because when you bark, that's a sound. And this is by Jules Pfeiffer. And it is about a young pup who's lost his bark. There's a great twist at the end. It's funny, it's cute, it's so well done, and it will put a smile on your face after, the whole 5 minutes it will take for you to read it. Love this. Okay, so that's it from me. If you have any recommendations for me that go with these prompts, as I've just gushed about some of my favorite books of all time that fit the prompts that I wanted to highlight, gosh, I don't know. There's something really energizing about talking about books that you just love. So thank you, Kayla, for coming up with this buzzword challenge, and that inspired me to do this video in which I recommended some of just the best books I've read, and that has given me life today. So thank you for that. Anyhow, if you have any books to recommend to me that fit with these prompts, let me know. I will leave Kayla's channel link down below. I will leave the video with her announcement. I should have said this at the beginning. We'll leave her video with the announcement link down below. But otherwise, that's it for me. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.